Hare Krishna, friends. So I am back continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are reading first canto, chapter 3, titled Krishna is the source of all incarnations. We already went through the texts which beautifully explained all the different incarnations of the Lord and established Lord Sri Krishna as the Supreme Self. And then we are actually reading a very, very important part, I believe, of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is actually telling us, how we can actually be helped by reading Srimad Bhagavatam to liberate ourselves from this material bondage and get engaged in the spiritual world in the service of Lord Shri Krishna. So it has already mentioned that if we can engage ourselves both in the morning and evening in hearing about the pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna in this Kali Yuga, even doing so little may be sufficient for us to get our ultimate goal of going back to Godhead, or actually our home from where we all have come, and to our beloved Father. Now it is actually giving us the technicalities in the last few texts about the methodologies other than hearing and how it actually works. So the previous text actually mentioned about when a person realizes that he is not either the gross body or the subtle body, and his pure self is besides this, then he actually gets the power or the eyes really to see his real self and also see the Supreme Lord. So now we are continuing our reading with text 34. Yadhyesho parata devi Maya Vaisharadi Matihi Sampanna eveti vidrum himnisve mahiyate. Translation: if the illusory energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then he becomes at once enlightened with self-realization and thus becomes situated in his own glory. Purport: because the Lord is the absolute transcendence, all of his forms, names, pastimes, attributes, associates, and energies are identical with him. His transcendental energy acts according to his omnipotency. The same energy acts as his external, internal, and marginal energies, and by his omnipotency, he can perform anything and everything through the agency of any of the above energies. He can turn the external energy into internal by his will. Therefore, by his grace, the external energy which is employed in illusioning those living beings who want to have it subsides by the will of the Lord in terms of repentance and penance for the conditioned soul. And the very same energy then acts to help the purified living being make progress on the path of self-realization. The example of electrical energy is very appropriate in this connection. The expert electrician can utilize electrical energy for both heating and cooling by adjustment only. Similarly, the external energy which now bewilders the living being into continuation of birth and death is turned into internal potency by the will of the Lord to lead the living being to eternal life. When a living being is thus graced by the Lord, he is placed in his proper constitutional position to enjoy eternal spiritual life. At this point, I would like to share with you, friends, a thought that came to my mind, and I think that is, we all are engaged in reading the Srimad Bhagavatam and trying to even understand this. This itself comes only if we have some sukruti or some positivity in our life to get to the right direction. So there is a supreme will already showing us the way while we are very much here entangled in this material world. So we should actually try and take or make the most of this little opportunity that we have. And the least we can do is when we engage in studying this transcendental literature every morning and evening, we do it with our complete attention, without getting distracted, not to the phones, not to the messages, not to anybody coming, not even allowing our mind to really wander off what to do next or what have we done or what call we are expecting. So if we can just do that, as a beginning, I think, that effort will be seen and rewarded in due time. So let us do that. I am going to try my best, and I hope you all are going to do that too. So as a gesture for that, I am going to take my phone and put that on silent as I am reading, so that this does not come in the way, and I'm going to keep this turned down so that I don't get distracted by the messages coming as well. I would request all of you to do the same if you can. That would be the biggest help you can do for yourself. So let's continue reading. Text 35. Evam janmani karmani hyakturya rajanasya cha varnayanti sma kavayo veda guhyani hritpate. Translation. Thus learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn and inactive, which is undiscoverable even in the Vedic literatures. He is the Lord of the heart. Purport. Both the Lord and the living entities are essentially all spiritual. Therefore, both of them are eternal, and neither of them has birth and death. The difference is that the so-called births and disappearances of the Lord are unlike those of the living beings. The living beings who take birth and then again accept death are bound by the laws of material nature. But the so-called appearance and disappearance of the Lord are not actions of material nature, but are demonstrations of the internal potency of the Lord. They are described by the great sages for the purpose of self-realization. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita by the Lord that his so-called birth in the material world and his activities are all transcendental. And simply by meditation on such activities, one can attain realization of Brahman and thus become liberated from material bondage. In the Shrutis, it is said that the birthless appears to take birth. The Supreme has nothing to do, but because he is omnipotent, everything is performed by him naturally, as if done automatically. As a matter of fact, the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his different activities are all confidential, even to the Vedic literatures. Yet, they are displayed by the Lord to bestow mercy upon the conditioned souls. We should always take advantage of the narrations of the activities of the Lord, which are meditations on Brahman in the most convenient and palatable form. This is so important because, many times we all try to get engaged in meditative practices, close your eyes, don't move, concentrate on your breathing or focus on the tip of your nose, and so many other things. Sit still, observe where your mind is wandering and so on and so forth. And ultimately we hope by doing this practice we will reach a stage when we will be able to focus our attention on the Supreme Lord in the form that we would like to imagine to begin with, till we are led to really having his darshan, when he wills. So, but what happens, as I have experienced while trying to do this, and I'm sure many of you who have tried this, that this is really, really difficult. There are just a couple of days when some amount of concentration is possible, but really it is not something that we are able to practice, and our mind simply refuses to sit still and focus on like nothing, or something as simple as the tip of a candle burning or the tip of our nose. It just refuses to listen to us, because I think in this world when there are so many distractions, our mind is tuned into that kind of activity. It is extremely difficult process. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's extremely difficult process. But the process of reading and listening to the wonderful activities of the Supreme Lord are not only enjoyable, but something which is easy to do. And I think if we kind of get involved in that, it's kind of so interesting. We read so many storybooks, novels, because we like hearing interesting stories. And if we can just with the same interest to begin with, start hearing this can give us such huge advantage. Why would we not take advantage of such a simple thing? Just hear the stories of the activities of the Supreme Lord, and then the blessings start flowing, and that will help us go forward. So if you are with me, listening or viewing the reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, and if some of you have copies of it and are reading along with me, bingo, we are on this right track, friends, and I'm sure sooner or later we are going to get there, right? All right, continuing our reading. Text 36. Sa va idam vishwam moghalilaha srijatyavattyati na sajjatesmin bhuteshu chantarhit atmatantraha Shadvargyakam Jighrati Shadguneshaha. Translation: the Lord, whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them, and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent. Purport: the prime difference between the Lord and the living entities is that the Lord is the creator and the living entities are the created. Here he is called the Amogha Leelaha, which indicates that there is nothing lamentable in his creation. Those who create disturbance in his creation are themselves disturbed. He is transcendental to all material afflictions because he is full with all six opulences, namely wealth, power, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. And thus he is the master of the senses. He creates these manifested universes in order to reclaim the living beings who are within them suffering threefold miseries, maintains them, and in due course annihilates them without being the least affected by such actions. He is connected with this material creation very superficially, as one smells odor without being connected with the odorous article. Non-godly elements therefore can never approach him despite all endeavors. Text 37. Na chasya kaschinni punen dhatu ravaiti jantuhu kumani shutihi namani rupani mano vachobhihi santvanto natacharyami vagyaha. Translation: the foolish with a poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama. nor can they express such things, neither in their speculations nor in their words. Purport: no one can properly describe the transcendental nature of the Absolute Truth. Therefore, it is said that he is beyond the expression of mind and speech. And yet, there are some men with a poor fund of knowledge who desire to understand the Absolute Truth by imperfect mental speculation and faulty description of his activities. To the layman, his activities, appearance and disappearance, his names, his forms, his paraphernalia, his personalities, and all things in relation with him are mysterious. There are two classes of materialists, namely the fruitive workers and the empiric philosophers. The fruitive workers have practically no information of the Absolute Truth, and the mental speculators, after being frustrated in fruitive activities, turn their faces towards the Absolute Truth and try to know him by mental speculation. And for all these men, the Absolute Truth is a mystery, as the jugglery of the magician is a mystery to children. Being deceived by the jugglery of the Supreme Being, the non-devotees, who may be very dexterous in fruitive work and mental speculation, are always in ignorance. With such limited knowledge, they are unable to penetrate into the mysterious region of transcendence. The mental speculators are a little more progressive than the gross materialists or the fruitive workers, but because they are also within the grip of illusion, they take it for granted that anything which has form, a name and activities is but a product of material energy. For them, the Supreme Spirit is formless, nameless, and inactive. And because such mental speculators equalize the transcendental name and form of the Lord with mundane names and form, they are in fact in ignorance. With such a poor fund of knowledge, there is no access to the real nature of the Supreme Being. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is always in a transcendental position even when he is within the material world. But ignorant men consider the Lord one of the great personalities of the world, and thus they are misled by the illusory energy. Thank you, friends. With this, we'll close our reading for today, and I'll continue the next session. In fact, not for today, for this morning, and we'll continue the session in the evening. Hare Krishna.